There's a huge panic right now that generative AI has literally killed the value of your resume. I mean, if an AI can just draft an entire data analysis in seconds, does a badge proving you can do the exact same thing even matter anymore? We constantly hear that human skills signals have just totally collapsed. But actually, the real world data tells a completely different and honestly a much more fascinating story.
Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're going to act as data detectives. We're analyzing a massive, real-world experiment to uncover the actual truth behind skills signaling in the age of AI. To do this, we're diving into an extensive audit of Kaggle, which, if you don't know, is the world's largest data science competition platform. With over 18 million competition entries, it's basically the perfect laboratory to see exactly what happened to human credentials before, during, and after the release of tools like ChatGPT. So here is our roadmap for the investigation. We're going to cover the AI credential crisis, how medals expire very quickly, the stranded credential effect, the profile proxy illusion, why behavior has not changed, and finally, rebuilding measurement systems. Let's jump right in. Section 1, the AI credential crisis, and testing our hypothesis. To kick off this data-driven investigation, we first really need to understand the laboratory we're stepping into. It's absolutely vital to differentiate between Kaggle's two evaluation formats, because this distinction, it's the key to understanding all the data we're about to unpack. Historically, Kaggle ran what they call upload competitions. Basically, you just submitted your final answers, and no one knew how you actually got them. But then, they shifted heavily to code competitions. In this new format, you submit your actual code, and the platform runs it offline on hidden data. If you used an AI to write some sloppy code that you never bothered to validate, well, it fails. Keep this major shift in mind, from just uploading answers to actually executing code, because it drives everything we're going to discover today. Moving on to Section 2, medals expire very quickly, and the shelf life of a credential. Now, what's genuinely wild about our first piece of hard evidence is what it says about the perishability of skills. When we look at the informativeness slope, which is basically just a fancy way of saying how well a medal predicts someone's future success, we see this incredibly steep drop-off. If we look at the unconditional value, a fresh medal that's under 1 year old carries a massive predictive weight, around 0.15 to 0.18. But watch what happens when that exact same medal is just 1 to 2 years old. It literally crashes down to almost zero. Think about that for a second. Almost all of the predictive power of a credential is completely gone after just 12 months. And even when we condition for a participant's full profile, the story is exactly the same. The signal decays incredibly fast. So zooming out, what does this actually mean for hiring managers and professionals? Well, it means a credential stock is only as informative as its recent replenishment. A massive 95% to 99% of the predictive power of a Kaggle medal lives solely in its first year. Your credentials basically expire faster than a carton of milk in your fridge. And the crazy part? This steep decay existed long before ChatGPT was ever a thing. Your skills, or at least the signals of them, expire very, very quickly. Section 3, the stranded credential effect and institutional exit. Let's move on to our next core mystery. If these medals expire so fast, why did the total stock of upload competition medals seemingly collapse by 82% in the AI era? I mean, did AI just suddenly make humans obsolete? Let's thoroughly unpack the breakdown of this decline. When we look at why these upload medals lost their overall value, we see a massive total drop. But if you break that down, composition, meaning the platform simply stopped issuing these medals, and the existing ones just naturally aged past that 1 year expiration date, accounts for half to 3/4 of the entire decline. The actual genuine shift in the medal's inherent value is comparatively tiny. There's a brilliant quote from the research here. We call the upload earn stock stranded, as a coal power plant is stranded when the grid switches to renewable energy. This analogy just hits the nail on the head. The upload credentials didn't lose value because generative AI suddenly made the medal holders bad at data science. No, the credentials were devalued by the phase-out of the evaluation format itself. The platform moved to code execution competitions, which effectively stranded the old medals. It's an institutional change, not a measured change in the person's actual performance. Which brings us to Section 4, the profile proxy illusion and reading lenses. This leads us directly into a really fascinating illusion in the data. Do old medals randomly regain value in the AI era? Because if you look at some metrics in isolation, they kind of appear to. But to solve this illusion, we first need to define the two different lenses you can use to read someone's resume.
First, there's a badge count read, which means looking at one single credential in total isolation, versus a full profile read, which means looking at a credential in the context of everything else that person has achieved, their other medals, their recent activity, the whole shebang.
Now, when we look at the changes in old medal value in the AI era, things get weird. For upload medals under a badge count read, the value shoots up. Old medals look super valuable. But watch what happens when we switch to a full profile read. That apparent value? It completely vanishes. Actually, it drops below 0. And conversely, old code medals look totally useless under a badge count read, but suddenly gain massive value under a full profile read. So what on earth is going on here? Why does the value completely flip-flop depending on how you read the data? Well, the crucial point is that a stale credential doesn't actually become a strong positive signal again out of nowhere. It just acts like a proxy. If I see you have an old upload medal, I can reasonably guess you probably stuck around and earned fresh code medals too. But once I actually look at your fresh code medals, your full profile, that old upload medal adds 0 new information. Think of it like 2 recommendation letters from the exact same person. Once the newer, much more detailed and discerning letter arrives, the older, vaguer one adds absolutely nothing. Signals live in portfolios, and reading them in total isolation creates these massive data illusions.
Moving to Section 5, behavior has not changed, looking at the human element.
Next up, we really need to address this widespread assumption that AI tools caused a massive behavioral shift. Did AI cause everyone to just get lazy, resulting in a huge spike in failed code submissions? Let's look closely at the data tracking the share of competitions with failed code runs over time. We have 3 distinct cohorts of users: pre-AI, transition, and the AI era cohort. If we mark the exact release of ChatGPT, look at how all 3 cohort curves move together in perfect unison. I mean, they dip and spike at the exact same times. There's absolutely no divergence whatsoever. What you should really take away from this is that, conditional on the competition itself, an AI era entry cohort fails no more than its predecessors. The spikes and failure rates are driven entirely by the platform making the competitions harder, not by users suddenly throwing their hands up and relying entirely on AI to do the work. The human element, their underlying effort and behavior, remained remarkably stable. Finally, Section 6, Rebuilding Measurement Systems and the Flaw in Lifetime Tiers. Let's take a look at how the institutions themselves are measuring these signals, and honestly, where they are getting it totally wrong. By contrasting the granular decay curves we talked about earlier with official lifetime tiers, we expose a massive flaw. We know predictive power drops off a cliff after year 1. But Kaggle, like so many other institutions, aggregates these medals into lifetime tiers, like achieving Grand Master status. Under their rules, a medal counts exactly the same toward that tier whether you earned it yesterday or 5 years ago. When you compare the predictive power of those official lifetime tiers against a simple index that just weights medals by how recently they were earned, the recency-weighted index wins by a mile. In fact, because they completely ignore recency, these official lifetime tiers literally discard up to 16% of the available information in the credentials. 16%. They're actively throwing away incredibly useful data just by pretending a 5-year-old medal is exactly the same as a brand new one. So, to wrap up our investigation today, the hard data proves that generative AI absolutely has not destroyed credentials, but it has revealed that sustaining their value is a really high-stakes problem of institutional design and constant personal upkeep. Credentials aren't dead for sure, but they are highly perishable. Their predictive power concentrates almost entirely in that first year. Those signals lose value when the issuing institution exits or changes the game, and most importantly, you absolutely must read credentials as a recent portfolio, not in isolation. So, I'll leave you with this final thought to reflect on as we all navigate this wild new era. Your credentials are perishable. How recently have you replenished yours? Your past achievements are fantastic, but the data clearly says they've probably already expired. So, what are you doing today to prove your skills for tomorrow? Thank you for exploring this fascinating data with me. Keep learning and keep updating that portfolio.